Welcome to another Peaceful Solution Character Education program, building more excellence in the workplace. And this is what we want to build, is moral excellence. Moral excellence, it's all about morality when it comes to the Peaceful Solution Character Education program. Building our character, our positive character. So we're going to continue in chapter 8, and for those who've joined us, this chapter is a very lengthy chapter, but it's a very important chapter. And it's a very important chapter because in this chapter, we're focusing on building successful managers, how we can be successful managers. And we started off last week talking about how we can mediate conflicts and how it is inevitable, meaning that there are going to be conflicts. But it's not about how the conflict starts. It's about how the conflicts end. And we went through and talking about you can leave a conflict with a positive experience. You can leave a conflict with a positive experience. It's all in what you say and how you say it. And it's all about your goal for the conflict, meaning you can go into a conflict and your thought can be to solve the conflict. But you can also go into the conflict with the mindset of making sure that you get their point across, that they did something to you. And you can convey that through your words. And they can be very disrespectful. Or you can use it as a learning tool. You can use all of these situations, all these conflicts as we go to, as a way of learning. A way to show someone this is what you did, but this is how you can be better. And this is what the Peaceful Solution is really showing, that in any situation, you can either use it as a way to hurt someone even more or to show someone that they can be better. And that's what we really want to keep in mind. And on page 153, we went over tips how to mediate successfully. You can isolate the situation, and this is where you use your active listening skills. And you focus on what is important. And you would make an effort to manage your emotions so the emotions do not cloud the situation. And then point number 2 would be have each party state the problem from his point of view or her point of view using facts rather than opinions. And this allows everyone to see from the other person's perspective. And notice this is facts. This is what is facts, not what I think you said, what you think I said. This is what's actually occurring. Number 3 is have each party state what he or she can do to solve the problem. Remember, as managers, as those who people are coming to us for support, our goal is to help people who we're working with to be able to solve the problems, to be able to, be promoted one day, to be able to lead a team of their own as well. The next one is have each party make a commitment to do his or her part to solve the problem. So we're not only admitting what we can do, but we're being committed to solve the problem. And then we're going to follow up. We're going to do a follow-up, making sure that this is what we said we're going to do, but we did it. And as we go through tonight, you're going to see the importance of following through, the importance of making something that was an idea, making it a habit, making it become a part of you. And on page 154, we talked about how successful managers learn to correct. And for those who are not here last week or you didn't tune in last week, I encourage you to go back and listen to that class because Tana covered it very well and she had really great examples in how she used this in her work area. So I encourage you to go back and listen to that. And she ended on this part talking about a girl named Julie and how, Julie might... you might not be able to talk everyone the way you might not be able to talk to everyone in your workplace the same way. And for those of us who are managers or, we have friends, or you might even be a parent, you are aware that you cannot even correct your children the same way. You cannot interact with everyone in the same way. Maybe not even your friends. You might have a friend who really likes to joke and, she'll get it. Or another friend and you just know you don't go there with her. It can be the same way with the people that you work with as well. But no matter what, we want to keep these interactions positive, encouraging, and moral. That's really important. No matter who you're with, keep them positive, encouraging, and moral. And a phrase that Tana ended last week is she said that Julie might even want to give up. Julie might even want to give up. And also, the reason that we correct is because we even teach when we correct. We don't correct people. I mean, I don't like to tell people, you did something wrong. But I understand that in order for growth, that is what we need. But it's all in how we say it. And I want to reference page 106, because page 106 of this book, it's entitled, You Have a Responsibility to Communicate Effectively. It is our responsibility to communicate in a way that is effective. And when it's effective, that means that it works. It means that, you see things changing. It is successful. So what do you do when someone tells you that they want to give up? I was thinking about this. What would I do? You have two options. You can simply give up if you want to, or we can work together to figure out what we can do. Because think about this. If someone tells, every time you correct someone, I want to give up. Okay, you keep giving up, you're no longer going to have a place to work. So why don't we take a step back and think about what is making you want to give up? What is making you feel like you can't succeed? And in talking about us as managers and the way that we correct, have you ever known someone, or maybe you yourself, you don't have to raise your hand, but you're unaware of what you said until someone pointed it out? Because you had been talked to or said to that your whole life, so you were unaware of what you were saying, that it was hurting someone, that it was disrespectful, that it was not okay. This is what we're bringing to our awareness. This is what we're expecting. We expect when we correct, like the sandwich technique. You say something positive. Now, remember, we're not sarcastic when we say this. We are something that is sincere. And something that was really emphasized last week is you can find something positive in everyone. And it can be as simple as they shut the door every time they come in. If that's the positive thing that sticks out to you, let them know that. Let them know that you found something positive that they do. And another thing that was mentioned last week is, Tana was saying how whenever she gets corrected, she gets put back into her, when she was in kindergarten, 5 years old. Remember that everyone has a journey they've been through, and certain things can trigger them. And something I keep in mind is that I shouldn't have to know your struggles in order to treat you with respect. I should treat you with respect because it's the right thing to do. Our employees shouldn't have to make us aware that they're going through something in order for us to treat them kindly, to use a calm tone of voice. We should do it because they are a human being. And we show that through our actions. We show that in the way that we speak to other people, in the way that we even think about them in our thoughts. Remember, before we even say something, we've thought about it. So we are respectful even in our thoughts, because our thoughts will become our feelings, and then they become our actions. So, I want to share something with you. There was a guy who was failing in high school, and he promised his mother that he would take the SAT test. So he did. He took the SAT test, and he got a score of 1,400 out of 1,600. And his mother was like, how did you get that? She's like, are you sure, you actually did that? And he's like, Mom, I tried to cheat. But the way it was, I just couldn't. And because he got that score, 1,480, he realized he was smart. Because before, he wasn't going to school. He was going to school, but he was hanging out with a rough crowd. He wasn't applying himself. But when he got that score, when something told him that he was smart, he believed in it. And what did he do? He took that score and he went to college. And he became a successful magazine seller. 15 years of being a successful magazine seller, he got an envelope in the mail that said, your class was a part of those who got 13 scores mailed to the wrong people. He was one of them. His score was actually 740. But notice, He needed confidence. He needed someone to tell him that he could do it. That is all it took, was for something to tell him that he could do it. And I really want you to keep that in mind as we go through, because we all need encouragement. And as it says on page 153, and everything we do, we teach. In the character book on page 71, it says, we are all role models. Whether I speak to you or not, I am teaching you. And when we correct our employees, the people we work with, we are teaching them. So really keep in mind the activity or the exercise that's on page 154, which says, rather than saying this report is terrible, didn't you take English in school? What could you say instead? And you can take this and really you figure out what situations they're having, what communications are struggling in the workplace that you're teaching it, and how can you better say this? How can you change your point of view and how that you look at people? Because like we said, maybe people aren't aware of how they're saying it. And some people can feel bad, like, oh my word, you are talking about me. That's okay. The fact that you can see that you can change, start today. Start today. Maybe you ask people for things. You say, can you please give this to me instead of give it to me? Maybe you hold the door open for someone. Maybe you acknowledge someone who you don't really like. And sometimes we don't like people and we don't even know why we don't like them. So you can start by building up that courage. Building up that courage for yourself as a manager that you can support other people. And you know what? It's going to be a full circle because everyone's going to be working together, supporting each other. But remember, we have a responsibility to communicate effectively. Now, all of that goes into point number 9, which is successful managers. Successful managers encourage a team approach. And this is an interesting thing because society can make you seem like it's better just to do it yourself. If you help me, I don't get all the credit for it. And I want to be an awesome person, so I need to get all the credit for it. If your name's on it, then people know that you helped. It's okay. It's okay to ask for help. That's what we teach. That's why people feel like they can't talk to anyone, that I have to do this all on my own. You don't. You can seek guidance from the right people, from those in authority. And this is even more important in a workplace, that we have a team approach. We work together. So on the top it says, no man is an island. No man stands alone. Are words appropriate for every work environment? As an effective manager, it is your responsibility to encourage a team approach by motivating others to work together. And I underline that. It's our responsibility to encourage a team approach by motivating others to work together. This is no easy task. We have been raised to have a drive of competitiveness and often consider our coworkers as members of the opposite team. This mentality is the cause of many conflicts and disagreements. And as we go further, we'll talk about team building activities. And I went online and I looked on there about what some workplaces offer for team building activities. And some of them were driven by competitiveness. And so when our mindset is, if I can be better than you, let's change that mindset to, how can I be better than I was yesterday? How can I be better than I was yesterday? And remember that this is a mentality that causes conflicts. This is a mentality that causes conflicts, which means that it starts in our thoughts. So I want to go to page 32. Yes, I'm going to find it real quick. Page 35, where it's talking about change those negative thoughts to positive ones. And it talks about how you can use the STOP acronym. Take a moment to analyze what you are thinking. Number 2, narrow down those thoughts. On page 36, number 3, give yourself a break. And number 4, negate the negative. So I referenced that there with our mentality, because we want to change our thought process on not how I can be against you, but how can we work together? How can we, be peaceful? And I also wanted to go to page 39, reference page 39, because our emotions can get built up a lot. Our emotions can cloud our minds. And so on point number 2 on page 39, it says, don't become discouraged or feel like the problem is greater than you can deal with. You can take charge of your thoughts and your feelings. If you can control your thoughts by changing the negative ones to positive ones, you will be better able to control your emotions and gain valuable insight into your behavior. So don't be discouraged. And this is something that you can actually talk with if you have staff meetings at the beginning of the day, because people that are in your workplace, this might be a time that this is the first time they are required to be somewhere on time, that they are required to go to work at a specific time, that they've had to work together in an atmosphere like this. So when we change our mindset on not being competitive, but how we can work together, as it says, it will help eliminate conflicts, because we're trying to find peaceful solutions. We're trying to work together. Okay, so it says, encourage your employees to work cooperatively in a variety of ways. The first one is resist the urge to compare the abilities of one employee to another. Do not make comments such as, George got his report on time, why couldn't you? This type of communication is counterproductive and results in resentment and jealousy. I underline that. It results in resentment and jealousy. Offer fair and objective criticism with praise without making comparisons to others. Now, this is a time where you can really help your managers figure out what they say and how it might not be the most effective. For instance, you could say, man, I wish so-and-so's here. She could have done it way faster. How do you think it makes that person feel? Or, now I remember why I always do things myself. Is that helping someone see what they did wrong? Helping them want to do better? Or could you imagine what it's like when you work with people who actually want to help you? Honestly, I wouldn't want to work with you anymore, because you don't see all the effort that I've put in. Or another one is, how long have you been here? By my age, I already knew how to do that. Newsflash, everybody's different. And not everyone knows the same things. And everyone is taught and understands at a different pace. So if you see that others maybe aren't doing how they're supposed to do or aren't achieving like you think, that is where you step in and say, do you understand? Is there anything I can help you with? Just like we talked about mediating conflicts, follow up on the instructions that you've given. Make sure that everyone understands what is required of them, what they are to do. And then, so when we talk about counter things that we could say that could really help people think, or could be a positive thing. You could say, have you thought about doing this? Have you thought about maybe changing the letters? And you might have those people that are like, I've thought about it and it just didn't work. You might have people that have those mindsets like, I've tried every option. Well, is there any way that I can help you? Always have that attitude of, is there any way I can help you? Is there any solution that we can find? Because remember, we're trying to build a team approach. And if you've ever worked in an atmosphere where there's always that one person who it is just a mountain and there's just no step that you can reach the top, it can be difficult. But it is possible to say, okay, let's just step back and let's find a way to be able to do this. But we don't want to be comparing people. Raise your hand if you've ever been compared to someone. And every time you saw that person, you thought, I'm never going to match that person. I'm never going to be able to achieve what that person did. And did that hinder you? It does. And you have to work through realizing why I'm not like that person. And that's okay. I think I've shared this in class before. Many of my cousins were very artistic, where I lack in that a ton. I am not artistic. And I tried a lot to be artistic in those areas, and it just didn't work for me. So what I did was it took some time, but I worked through, okay, that's not for me, so what is my strength? What is my strength? And we covered this in step 2 of successful managers of observe. Observe your coworkers. Observe those who you are managing. What are their strengths? Put them in places where you know they can thrive. And you know what? Maybe they want to achieve something. Put them with someone who you know is great at it. And you know what will occur? They can show the other person how they can do it. They can show that person how that they can be able to achieve things, but never compare. And anytime you feel like, anytime you feel like that you are about to compare, remember that feeling whenever you were compared. Because you probably feel like a small little thing. So don't do that. But this takes time to stop and think about what we say before we say it. So we want to resist the urge to compare the abilities of others. But just like when in correction, we do that sandwich. We do that sandwich where we say something positive, and then we also give away that they can improve. Point number 2 would be look for team building activities that can teach your staff to work together towards a common goal. Make these activities part of an in-service. An in-service means as ongoing training while employed. So make these activities part of an in-service and other training sessions. So as I said previously, I went online to look for what are some things that society is offering in their workplaces. And a few of them were called a host, lunch, and learn. And what it is you give a few of the employees an opportunity to host a lunch. And what you do is you sit around, and at that lunch, you're able to learn about other people. You're able to learn about your coworkers. You're able to, talk about things. And if you think about it, just like we talked about previously, sometimes not everyone knows every person. Especially if you work in a big place, not everyone knows everyone. I might know you because someone told me something about you. But it's nice to know something about someone else, because then you can figure out in ways that you are alike. Another one was called a memory wall. And what they would do is you would write something nice. It would be anonymous, but there's a wall, and you write something nice about everyone on that wall. Or you write a positive quote. Or you write a nice thing that you experienced at work. And what it does is it helps people to see that we have accomplished something. And then this one was interesting. It's called a blind drawing. And what you do is you put a blindfold on the person that you're drawing, and the other person has the picture, and they have to describe to you what you're supposed to draw, the person they see, what's on the photo. And what that is supposed to do is help with effective communication, because all you can do is listen. All you can do is listen to what is being said. But this would be another thing that you could also do is whenever there's anything going on, this kind of ties into correction. If you have a staff meeting, point out, okay, just a reminder to everyone that we do blah, 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 blah. So that you don't have to, call someone out right there, but you can kindly remind them. And team building activities are really about team building, remember, not competitiveness, but finding ways that everyone works together, remember, to achieve a common goal, which goes back to point number 1. You have to be knowledgeable about what you're going to do, what you're trying to achieve. Point number 3 is appreciate each person for his or her contributions. And this can be as simply as saying thank you. This can be giving someone new opportunities. Because remember, we're encouraging people to pursue, to have personal growth, to become better. And so you can give people new opportunities. Be able to, tag team with someone, or be able to, if they like to proofread and that's something they're trying to work on, if you're in a publishing and someone's trying to work on the proofreading, even if you already proofread it, give that to them. Would you be able to look over this for me? Help them to be able to grow in that way as well. Because being a part of a team is something that everyone wants. Even those who, say, I just want to sit and no one to talk to me, they still want to be appreciated. You know why? Because they'll contact you when they want to talk to somebody, which means that they want to be appreciated. Everyone does. And so this is why we want to let others know that they are appreciated. Not just whenever we know something is going wrong, not just when we feel, like there's maybe distance between you. No, you want to appreciate everyone because everyone deserves to be appreciated. And this will encourage each other to do better. It will encourage genuine work ethic. It says, offer rewards and incentives for accomplishing tasks as a group. And this is where we want to accentuate the positive and eliminate the negative. And I want to reference the character book, page 21. It's entitled, Don't Accentuate the Negative, and it's paragraph 2. It says, not accentuating the negative character traits means first realizing that there are aspects of your life that need changing, then focusing on doing just the opposite of the behavior you want to change. That part is very important. You see what you need to change, and then you focus on doing the opposite behavior of what you want to change. So if you're used to just speaking out, saying whatever's on your mind, take that moment to stop and think about what you say. If you're, used to being sarcastic, take a moment and think. If you're used, to just think about anything that any negative behavior. And in the chapter 2, we go over chapter 1, we go over how to eliminate negative behavior. Because we are role models. And if we don't want others to exhibit that behavior, then we ourselves have to be working on not exhibiting that behavior as well. But remember, we are all a work in progress. And we have to give each other that opportunity, as fellow managers, the opportunity to grow. Because something that is, a lot of people say is, my authority corrects me for something that they do themselves. Well, we're all a work in progress, right? And sometimes we're put in situations where we are trying to overcome ourselves, but how we overcome that, how we learn not to do that, is by helping someone else solve that problem. So as, even though we're managers, we still have others above us. So also remember that they are working on things too. They are working on things too. Give everyone that opportunity to grow. And on page 73 of the self-control book, it says, replace hot thoughts with cold thoughts. And it has an exercise there, and I really encourage you to do that. Take time to think about what your hot thoughts are, and then how can I replace them? Because it is possible. Remember, we want an atmosphere of peace, but that can only be achieved through our willingness to change. And that willingness starts with the individuals, us as individuals, us laying that foundation for ourselves, starting to change who we are, and then it ripples out. And then ultimately, you'll have a workplace that is peaceful. But that only comes through everyone working together. People say that teamwork has the word me in it, correct? Well, in order to make a team, you have to start with yourself at building your positive character. And with this, I'm going to turn over to the next speaker.
All right, y'all, we're going to pick up right where Tori left off on page 155, and we're going to read the next point here. It says, appreciate each person for his or her contributions and abilities. I'm sorry, that's the one she just read. We're going to read the next one. Offer rewards and incentives for accomplishing tasks as a group. And remember what we went over back in the parenting unit, that whenever you offer an incentive or you offer a reward, it's not always something tangible. It might be something that the entire team has wanted to do for a period of time and it just hasn't been approved, or every time you send it up, it gets rejected and it gets passed back down, that maybe you'll get all of your managers together and you will write out a descriptive plan of how the team can accomplish something that they've been wanting to do for a period of time. And the incentive might just be that you're going to present it to the people who are above you or who are in the higher ranking. That might be an incentive that you get. So sometimes it's not that you'll get a $1,000 raise, and it's not that you'll get, overtime, you'll get a time and a half. It's not always a tangible incentive, but sometimes it's something that you look forward to, and it might just raise morale. It might just be something that encourages you to want to come to work. Or it might be something that you've been viewing as an issue that people haven't really given you the time, that if you accomplish this before the time period, then you'll have an extra hour that you can present your concerns, or you can present things to, another manager or a group of managers or the people over you. Sometimes, keep in mind that incentives and rewards, they're not always something tangible, and it's not always cash value. Sometimes it's just something to bring up morale. All right, the next point says, assist your staff in improving their overall performance without demoralizing or negating the strength of the group. And that word demoralizing means causing someone to lose confidence or hope. Demoralizing means causing someone to lose confidence or hope. So let's read that again. Assist your staff in improving their overall performance without causing someone to lose confidence or hope and, losing that strength of the group. And go back to what Tori was talking about with the way that as managers that you interact with someone, the way that you correct them, the way that you point things out to them. Simply the way you lay out a schedule. If somebody tells you that they're having a physical ailment at that moment, and you have the ability to set up the schedule to where they don't have to do so much lifting if they're having a back problem, or they might not have to do so much reading or so much computer time if they're having a migraine headache that day. If you as the manager have the ability to place their schedule in a way that seeks their desires or something that benefits them, go about doing that. Because if they continue to bring their concerns to you and it's not met, and they're continuing to do jobs that hurt or cause more physical ailments, they're going to fall into routines where they don't come to work anymore. They'll just call in sick, whether they are or not, because this one thing, their back or their head or their eyes or their arms, or maybe they have arthritis, and you think they're stretching it out just a little bit too much. But to them, it's a very serious thing, and when that's all they can focus on, that they can't get to their work, then it becomes a serious problem in the workplace, to where it decreases your morale, and it pulls down the entire group if you're expecting that one person to carry that weight, and they're continuing to fall out. It's because they've lost hope in the fact that their superiors no longer listen and no longer care and have that compassion and that empathy. So as managers, it's so important to keep that in mind. If you are in a position or a place that you can hear out someone's concerns and you can make their life easier, be willing to have that, that listening ear to do that for them. It says, for example, instead of saying to your staff, your inattentive to customers has caused us to lose sales, you could say, I've noticed that when we greet customers warmly and assist them in finding the things that they need, our sales greatly improve. Let's really focus on doing these things for the next month. And you can see how that sandwich routine, instead of pointing out to them well, you are the reason that we haven't done this, say to them, I've noticed that if we do this, so you're not, even if if you've done something or you interacted rudely with a customer, you know exactly who the managers are talking about when they come out and give the greeting. You know. You don't need them to point it out to you. And if it is a situation to where it's just a part of, your environment, of how you grew up, that's who you are, that's how you interact with someone, having the open mind to realize that when you come into a place of business, you bring yourself, but you don't get to be yourself, if that makes sense. Because if you work in hospitality and you have to greet someone, they have rules, so many feet, 10 feet, you look up, 4 feet, you greet them and you say, hello, how are you? That there's no bending on that. You came into that type of business, that is what is expected of you, that is what is required of you. You can't just say, I'm feeling bad, so I'm just not going to say that. You might not have a job the next day. And if they're really, if they're low on staff, then you might still have a job. But it's not because you're doing your job. It's because they have no other option. And it's important to keep that in mind, that yes, we do bring ourselves. And a lot of the times, your personality is what gets you your job. But your character is what keeps you your job. And it's so important that we understand the difference of what we went through all the way back in chapter 1 of this unit about character and how that lays that foundation. Right now, the quote at the bottom of the page says, "Be on the peaceful solution construction team, not a demolition derby." Okay, so be on the peaceful solution construction team, not a demolition derby. And, the peaceful solution team, we're all about giving hope, because we know and we can see in society, once you've lost hope, you've lost your reason for life. You've lost your purpose. You've lost everything once you've lost hope. So you have to have that hope, and you have to have that belief, and you have to build up that morale. And you never know what's going on in someone's personal life when they walk into your door. And if you bring your personal baggage and they bring their personal baggage, no work is being done, and everyone is most likely miserable. Because even if you have somebody who is super chipper and they woke up feeling really, really great that day, that is going to be drugged down by the environment and the vibe that's going on in the work area. All right, so we're going to go over to page 156. Page 156, and it's point number 10. It says, "Successful managers learn to delegate." And I want to reference that. Let's flip back to page 145. So successful managers learn to delegate. And on page 145, it's in the middle of that first paragraph. It says, "Managers are responsible for themselves first and foremost, then others within the team, and finally the overall atmosphere of the work environment." Okay, so flip back to page 156. Successful managers learn to delegate. Okay, so a successful manager, and everybody measures success differently. Some people measure success if you rolled out of bed and you walked into work that day. That was success, because you really didn't feel like doing it. So that's success. To some people, if they don't make a certain amount of money a week, that's success, if they reach that. To other people, if they show up to work 3 out of 4 days, that's success. So, when it says successful managers learn to delegate, you have to really understand what that word successful means to each individual. Because as we go forth and teach this to managers, they might feel that they really are being successful at whatever standard of success that they have. So we want to bring everybody up to that same level. But if it starts with yourself, it means it always goes back to your mind. It goes back to your mindset. And it goes back to how you view yourself and how you view the world around you. It says, "An effective manager is able to delegate tasks and responsibilities. No one person can do it all, nor should he or she try. It is the responsibility of those in authority to help bring out the best in their employees." And I have that highlighted and underlined, okay, because it is the responsibility of those in authority to bring out the best, not the worst, in our employees. And it's important to really focus on that and to see how our interactions and the way that we talk to people, the way that we treat people, the way that we, run our area as managers, we could be bringing out the best, or we could be using our authority to bring out the worst in a person, in a situation, and emphasize on that one point. It says, "Assigning tasks that challenge an employee's skills and knowledge will help that individual to mature and acquire a greater degree of competency. Ultimately, being able to delegate successfully relies upon the manager's skills in observing the potential strengths of the employees, and then allowing individuals to capitalize on those strengths for the betterment of the company or the organization." Okay, so see that. It relies on the manager's skills. So as a manager, you have to be able to see the best in yourself. That's why first managers have to lead themselves, then they can lead others. Because if you reflect and all you see is the negative in you, then when you look at someone else, you're only going to see the negative in them. You're not going to see the positive because it's not reflected in you. So always remember that and the mindset. And if you come into a situation or you're coming into your work and you're always seeing the worst in every situation, challenge yourself to find one great thing about whatever the one person you can't get along with, or whoever the one person in your team that holds everything up that you feel, find one positive thing about them and then focus on that. And every time you see them, say that one positive thing in your head. And that'll focus your mindset to turn it back from not seeing the negative, because it doesn't mean it's not there anymore. But if all you see is that, then that's all you focus on. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. And it's like, I seen this quote the other day, and I'll share it with you. And it said, once you become aware of a problem or a situation, that doesn't mean it automatically goes away. And I never thought about it until I read it, how much I find myself expecting that to occur. Once I see a problem, it's like, well, now it can go away. Like, I know it's there. It needs to just go away. But it took a long time for me to see the problem. It's going to take that much time for that problem to go away. Once you recognize it, you can't just not see it anymore. It's literally the only thing you see because you focused on it, and it becomes magnified. And every time you walk into the room, that's the one thing you can see. And then you can't get past that, or you can't move past that if it's always in our mind and it's replaying over and over. So being aware of our thoughts and our mindset. It says search for potential strengths in individuals and then allow them to develop them. And as managers, we're always supporting their growth. Find the strengths that they have. It's just like when you're dealing with a child. If you're dealing with a child who is an irate, out of control, they don't listen, you're always focusing on the one thing that they can do. They might lose control, but they are an amazing organizer. So when you have something that needs to be organized, or when they're having a fit, you pull them to do this and say, you're the most amazing organizer. Can you help me do this? And their mind is so, like, it works. Y'all, I have tried it with children. It works. If you switch their mind, they quit processing and they go to this new thing. It works with adults too. If somebody's in the middle of a situation and they're venting and they're emotional and all they see is this one situation, find their strengths and ask them about that. I can't guarantee you that it's going to work because they still might be the first few times focused on it, but you've planted the seed in their mind that even though they only see what they're messing up on, you noticed one thing they were great at. And then when that situation comes again, they'll have that in their mind and they'll be able to focus on that, even if it's just one thing. And somebody said to me once, it's better to have an untrained teenager start working for you than to have an advanced 50-year-old who knows everything already to come and work for you. Because it's harder to retrain someone who doesn't want to be trained versus someone who has no skill, but they have passion. And they can be taught a skill. So it's always important to remember that yes, advanced skill and the mindset and the knowledge base is, you can't buy that. You can't buy skill. But you can also train someone to have the same amount of skill. Only when you train them, they do things the way you need them done. You don't have to retrain from what they already know. All right, and the quote at the bottom of point number 10 says, when you delegate, you give others the opportunity to contribute their strengths and their skills. Okay, so when you delegate to others, so as managers, when we're delegating and we're giving things out to others, you see different viewpoints. People have different backgrounds. They have different experiences. They have different cultural beliefs. And when you get someone else's perspective on a situation or on a project, you can tie that in to see how it can benefit your company. And even if you're hearing everyone's ideas and none of them work for your progress, you have their ideas for future things that can be tied in or that can be done. All right, going into point number 11. It says successful managers take initiative. Okay, successful managers take the initiative. Now, I was looking in to see what are some common challenges that management face in their workplace. So when it goes into taking this initiative, what are some challenges that are very common in the workplace? So I got 12 common ones. Okay, so here's the 12 common ones. The first one is decreased performance levels. 2 is being understaffed, which has gotten unbelievable numbers now with COVID hitting us going into that third year. People are being severely understaffed. 3 is they lack communication. 4 is poor teamwork. 5, the pressure to perform. 6, an absence of structure. There's no guidelines, there's no outlines for them to follow, going back to that lack of communication. 7 is time management. 8 is inadequate support from either their management or their team or those who are over them. 9 is skepticism. 10, difficult employees. 11, transition from coworker to manager. That should say manager, I apologize. Transition from a coworker to a manager. And 12 is a workplace culture. Okay, so I want to point in on 9, 11, and 12. So 9 was skepticism. And one of the reasons that that's hard is that when somebody comes into work under you as a manager, if you judge on what you see on first appearances, that's all you see them as. And if that's all you see them as, then that employee never reaches their full potential, because you've judged that book by its cover and that's all it is. But whenever you have an open mind when somebody comes in, or you ask them to get their views, or even if you have no intention of using someone's ideas, simply asking them for their input, it can mean the world to someone. So it's important as management that yes, we're the authority, and yes, we're over things, and sometimes even managers have people over them. So even if you approve something or you think it's a great idea, whoever's over you might see a bigger picture of how that idea affects the overall workplace or the overall management that I might not see because I work on the ground level. But those who work above me can see more, so they notice things that I wouldn't have seen, how this one choice can counteract and affect everything else. Okay, point number 11 was the transition from a coworker to a manager. And if you've ever worked in a place for a long time, and you work and you become friends with your coworkers, and you come in one day and your coworker who is your friend is no longer just your coworker, now they're your manager. So now they get to tell you what to do, and they set your schedule, and they appoint certain things going on. And you have that friendship, but you can no longer just talk about things you would normally talk about. And as the person who was a coworker who's now a management, if you spent that time complaining to your coworker about management, now you have a whole nother ball game, because now you see what it's like to be in management. You're not just complaining about it, now you're seeing when they didn't listen to me, when they weren't taking my advice, it wasn't because they weren't taking it. It was because they took it and they sent it and it didn't contribute to what we needed. It wasn't beneficial to everybody. It wasn't focusing on our main goal. It wasn't supporting the whole team. It was supporting a small number that we couldn't see. So it creates an interesting dynamic when you go into that. And then number 12 is a workplace culture. And over the course of the last few months, we've had many of our instructors teaching this class talk about how in workplaces you have different cultures. You have different beliefs. You have people from all walks of life who are all drawn together and they're working things in the same place, but that environment is so different, because what's normal for you is not normal for me, and what makes sense to you is completely crazy to her, because different backgrounds and how we do things, it doesn't make sense. But with the Peaceful Solution, our whole goal is bringing all of this chaos, or what can be chaos, and helping it make sense. Because we don't just see the problem, we don't just see the problematic person, we don't just see the issue, we see the end goal and how we can shift things around to get this team to work together, especially to make it successful. All right, going back to point 11, successful managers take the initiative. All right, and I want to tie this in with the Building Moral Excellence unit on page 162. Okay, so for successful managers, take the initiative. It says a positive leader is able to mediate or find a middle ground in conflict situations. A conflict is a problem between two or more people that arises because they misunderstand or disagree with each other. Okay, so a positive leader, they're able to find that middle ground. And I want to key in on that word conflict, because we hear it so much in our news today that sometimes we think conflict is a war, or conflict is a mass destruction, two countries between people, two entire organizations. A conflict is simply a disagreement. We're working on a project and I think it should be done this way, and you think that blue pops and I think that green pops. And because we don't agree, neither one of us can finish the project because we do not agree on the base color. It doesn't make any sense when you think of it like that, but when you are emotionally in that situation, you cannot see past the fact that this project makes absolutely no sense if you start with the blue base. It has to start with the green. And once you start that, you've already ruined the entire thing. Like, I cannot visually see it coming together if it's not doing this. But a manager is able to step in and see, okay, so why do you think blue is this way? Why do you think green is this way? And then once you hear the situation, and then you'll be able to see, okay, so I can see your point and I can see your point. Is there a way we can collaborate the two? And then go back to the goal of the project that you're working on. Does the base color even matter? Or is it a personal thing that you're personally attached to this, so that's what makes it so important? Or is it actually important? And one thing to really keep in mind that I struggled with whenever I went into my work environment is that whenever you have a problem or a disagreement or you have a conflict between what you think, what makes sense to you, and what they're saying to do because they're not making sense to you, you don't get to say when your 20 minutes come. So because right now I need to talk to somebody about this, does not mean that your manager has 20 minutes right now to talk about it. And it's important that employees understand that. And it's important that managers realize that they have that authority. You take that initiative, you set the time. You need 5 minutes of my time? Okay, we'll set it up and then I'll get back to you. We're emotionally into this situation right now that we feel like we cannot move on with our work until this one thing is handled. But logically, that doesn't make sense. Because in the overall scheme of everything that still has to be done, it still had to be done. And I remember going into my work area thinking, if I knew the end, like if I knew the end goal, I could get to that point. But I only knew the first 5 steps. And they would say, well, then do the next 2. And I say, but that doesn't make sense because I still don't understand the end. They were like, just do the next 2. So I did the next 2. And by the time we got to the end, I was really glad I didn't know the end because it never would have ended up like that because I did not see it coming together like that at all. But it's important that we're open-minded and understand that people are over us because they can see things that we can't. And if we're emotionally invested in that moment, we're not going to complete the job or the task that is set before us at hand. All right, it says a leader sees a problem and then takes the right steps to solve it. This is called taking initiative, and it is an important skill for a manager to have. Think about it. Where would we be without someone to take initiative? Would anything get done? And the answer is no. If you didn't have someone to take the initiative to do things, nothing would be done that's done. You know, the things that we have are our cell phones, our computers, the lights that we're using, the internet streaming services that we have. None of this would be available to us if someone didn't take the initiative and say, this is possible, how can I do this? If we waited around for everyone to do it, nothing would get done because we were all just waiting. So taking that initiative is so important. It says to take the initiative requires confidence, conviction, and a steadfast willingness to go out on a limb when you see a need or a solution. Diligence in taking initiative takes courage and clearly marks an individual as a leader. Okay, so that diligence in taking the initiative. And remember, to be diligent means it's not just a one-time thing. It becomes a habit. It becomes a part of who we are. Now, I ask a few of our fellow classmates here, how do you see management taking the initiative? And I have a few for you on the screen, and I'm just going to read a few from each slide. But how do you see management taking the initiative? Someone said, I see managers delegating tasks to employees, keeping things running smoothly when things get chaotic, and being an example on how things should be handled. They see what needs to be done from an overall perspective, and it's regardless of if it's something they want to do or not. Taking initiative is not just about the work, but also about the well-being of the people around them, both mentally and physically. Sure, they are under you for 8 hours of the day, but there are so many other facts in life that we all come with, helping them to find a balance. Okay, and then they said, being open-minded, listening to their employees and consider possible suggestions on how to improve things, and then recognizing the strengths and the weaknesses of the employees and stepping in when they see need or rotating to accommodate the need of the work. Okay, and that's ways that in their work environment that they see managers taking the initiative. And I love the one that said, you're with somebody 8 hours a day, but that's not their entire life. They have a life outside of work. And that life doesn't just shut off when you come. It all comes with you. And it's so important that as managers, you've heard it said before, managers say, I'm not your therapist. No, you're not, but you're their friend. You're someone for them to go to. You're someone that they can count on. You're someone who's there that if you build that relationship of someone they can talk to, someone they can rely on, someone they can trust, you're more likely going to have a better working environment. And you're going to have people that rely on you, that do as you say, and that trust you. All right, now that word initiative. Initiative means an introductory act or step leading action. Okay, so an initiative is an introductory act or step leading action. All right, so as a quick note of caution, always remember to go through the proper channels to make changes or put new policies in place so that you do not usurp authority. In like manner, encourage your employees to take the initiative to accomplish goals, but remind them that one of the first steps would be to contact the correct personnel. All right, and one note you can put here is one thing that will help you in taking the initiative to not usurp your authority is to always ask. To always ask. And it can seem annoying and overwhelming to always ask, but it's better to ask and know for sure than to do something and then feel that you get in trouble for it later. And I have issues with that word trouble. I don't like the word trouble. When somebody says, I get in trouble, or I'm going to get in trouble, or they're going to get me in trouble. If you've done something wrong, then that's what it is. It's just a reaction, recognizing that, okay, I did this, I need to learn from it. Trouble means that you're just sat there and I'm just trouble, and that's like a category that you stay, but you're not. If you've done something that was wrong, if you've done something that didn't quite meet the policy, that didn't quite meet the bar, this is what I've done. I need to be aware of it so that I can learn from it and I cannot do it again. Because remember, a mistake is only something that we do when we're not aware that we're doing it. If we know it's wrong and we've done it, it's no longer a mistake. It's a choice. It's so important to know that difference. All right, at the bottom of page 156, it says, take the initiative to share ideas. Your ideas might just be what are needed to improve your work environment. All right, let's see. I want to go back here to real fast because we have just a minute. If we flip back over to page 35, when it comes to managers and taking the initiative, I just want to point this out real fast because I was going over this and I'm thinking, for managers, it's all in our head. It's all in our mindset, and it's all in our viewpoints. So on page 35, it talks about narrowing down our thoughts. And one of the examples they give us here is to be generalized. And a generalized thought is, no one appreciates me. To think that no one appreciates us is to imply that there is not one person in the entire world who values us as individuals. And that is simply not true. If we really, truly think about it, we can find one person on the entire planet who values us as an individual. So think of that generalized thinking, right? It says a more realistic thought would be, he does not appreciate my input at this meeting, or she does not appreciate my suggestion. And just because somebody doesn't appreciate it, or they don't thank you for it, or they don't admire it, or they don't even want to give you the ear to hear it, doesn't mean what you have to say isn't valuable. And it's so important as managers that we make sure our employees know that. Just because somebody doesn't take your idea, just because they're not willing to give you that ear, it doesn't mean it's not invaluable. It doesn't mean your suggestion is stupid, and it doesn't mean that you're just wasting someone's time. So always remember that going forward, that what we have to say is valuable, is important, and not to let the thoughts or the feelings or the reactions of others label us and form us into who we're not, because we know who we are and we have a choice to stay who we want to become. All right, so that will conclude our portion here. Next week, we'll pick up on point number 12. I hope everybody has a wonderful week, and if you're located in Texas, stay warm over the next few days. Bye, everyone.